quiet thing in the walls. Claire had lived in her cottage for only 6 weeks when she first noticed the sound. It wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, it wasn't even particularly strange at first, just a soft, rhythmic tapping inside the walls, like someone gently knocking from the other side of the plaster. Tap, tap, tap. Always 3 taps. Always at night. Always from a different wall. She told herself it was the pipes. Old houses did that. They shifted, they settled, they sighed. But the tapping wasn't random. It moved. It followed her. And it always stopped the moment she tried to record it. The first night it spoke. One night around 2:40 a.m, Claire woke to the tapping again. 3 soft knocks from the wall beside her bed. Tap, tap, tap. She sat up, heart thudding. The room was cold, colder than it should have been. Her breath fogged faintly in the air. Not tonight, she whispered. The tapping stopped. She lay back down, pulling the duvet up to her chin. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then, from the wall behind her headboard, a new sound emerged. A whisper. Not words, not breath, something in between. A dry, papery rustle, like fingernails brushing against old wallpaper. Claire froze. The whispering grew louder, still muffled by the wall, but unmistakably close. Too close. It moved slowly along the wall, tracing the outline of her bed. Then it stopped directly behind her head. A single, deliberate tap sounded inches from her skull. Tap. Claire didn't sleep the rest of the night. The house begins to change. Over the next week, the cottage grew colder. Not everywhere, just in the places where the tapping had been. The hallway, the kitchen, the corner of the living room where the old grandfather clock stood, and the walls began to feel wrong. Sometimes when Claire pressed her hand against the plaster, she felt a faint vibration beneath it, a slow, steady pulse, as if the house itself had a heartbeat. She tried to ignore it. She tried to be rational, but the tapping grew bolder. Sometimes it came in the afternoon. Sometimes it came from the ceiling. Sometimes it came from the floor beneath her feet. And sometimes, only twice, but enough to break her, she heard something else. A soft, breathy giggle. The night the walls breathed. It was raining hard the night everything changed. Wind howled through the trees outside, and the cottage groaned under the weight of the storm. Claire sat on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, trying to drown out the tapping with the television, but the power flickered, then died, plunging the room into darkness. The tapping started immediately. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Faster now, urgent, coming from every wall at once. Claire stood, backing toward the centre of the room. Her breath came in sharp, panicked bursts. Stop, she whispered. The tapping stopped. The silence that followed was worse, because the walls inhaled. A long, slow, shuddering breath. Plaster expanding, wood creaking, as if the entire cottage had drawn air into its lungs. Claire stumbled backward, knocking into the coffee table. Her hand shook violently. Then the walls exhaled. voice in the wall. The whispering returned, louder now, clearer. It came from the wall nearest the front door. Claire pressed herself against the opposite wall, shaking her head. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." The whispering grew sharper, more focused. Then it formed a word. Claire. Her blood turned to ice. The voice was thin, stretched as if dragged across a great distance, but it knew her name. Claire. She clamped her hands over her ears, but the voice seeped through her palms, through her bones. "Let me out." The wall bulged outward just slightly, as if something inside had pressed its face against the plaster. Claire screamed. The final night. She ran to the front door, fumbling with the lock. Her hands were numb, clumsy. The key slipped, clattered to the floor. Behind her the wall cracked. A thin, jagged line split the plaster from ceiling to floor. Dust drifted down like ash. Something pushed from the other side. A hand. Long. Pale. Too many knuckles. It pressed through the crack, fingers writhing like blind worms searching for light. Claire grabbed the key, twisted the lock, and threw the door open. Cold rain slammed into her face as she ran into the night barefoot, screaming for help. She didn't stop running until she reached the neighbour's house, half a mile down the lane. The aftermath. When the police arrived, the cottage was silent. No cracks in the walls, no cold spots, no signs of forced entry. Just an old house, perfectly still. They searched every room, every cupboard, every crawl space. They found nothing except one thing. In the bedroom behind the headboard, the wallpaper had peeled away in a single perfect circle, about the size of a human face, as if something had been pressing against it for a very, very long time. And on the plaster beneath, written in faint, uneven scratches, was a single